Greetings, one and all. You have just found the Brain Software Podcast coming to you from Toronto, Canada. This is episode 166. I'm Chris Thompson, and today, Mike Mandel and I look at attitude and gratitude, both good and terrible. So stay tuned for some awesomeness.
Hey, how are you now? It's your old pal Brado here, podcasting from way up Hypno North, Meaford, Ontario. And today Dave Ambrose has gone missing, so I'm filling in for him in that. It's snowing up here in Meaford as I'm speaking into the iPhone 5, which is awesome. So let's get moving on this pecker with my version of an empowering question. It goes like this. For hell's sake, whatever happened to that good old feeling of calm we used to experience in a Dodge Charger before Eddard lost his driver's license due to blowing too high in the breathalyzer? Now his whole life's bitched. And that.
These are days of victory.
And that. So let's welcome to the joint linkage of Meaford and Toronto, the dynamic duo of hypnosis, and I'm sure as F not talking about me and Eddard, Chris Thompson and Mike Mandel and that.
Yes! We are back in Bavarch.
And we are not witches.
It is episode 166, and what were you saying this is, or what were you about to say? What were you saying?
I was saying nothing. This is, yeah.
What were you saying to me before we hit record?
About it being the most Dale Carnegie podcast?
Yes,
well,
yes.
Yeah, this is our most Dale Carnegie podcast, all about, winning friends and interest and
influencing people.
But it's more about attitudes and how our attitudes can literally change everything in our life. It will change our perception of reality. It will change our relationships and how much fun we have, which is kind of an important point.
Yes, and in fact, we've been really having a lot of fun lately, even though the year 2020 has been a strange year. But you know what? Life can still be fun. Life can still be effortless and still be vaguely annoying to other people.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do our think tank words of the day. And then we're going to dive in and be talking about gratitude and enthusiasm and attitudes of gratitude and how to have an awesome life and how to just remember to be positive.
Think about the think tank words. These are from Savo Bukacek's actual think tank. And the first one is primer.
Ooh, well, that's interesting because, of course, my wife and I have been talking about some redecorating in one of the rooms of our house. And she said, do you think we need primer before we paint this wall? So primer, setting the stage for something new. Primer can be the first step. Primer can be, what else can primer be?
Primer can be a book on a specific topic.
Oh, yeah, right. Like a primer on learning how to be positive and grateful in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what about title, which is the next one?
Ooh, title. Yeah. So title to me, as a marketing guy, is like, I was going to say sales pitch, not really sales pitch, but think something that has to open up your interest, the door to your, it has to prime your interest.
But what's title with that?
Well, title, like the title of a book, the title of
like a knighthood,
podcast.
like Sir Lanyard Ballwater.
No,
or
I'm
something?
thinking more the title of a book or the title of a blog post or the title of a video.
Primer can be a book too. So we got primer and title tying together, but the third one, soybean, just takes it right off the frickin' rails.
Anti-nutrition. There we go.
Now, soybean, that's let's say soja. Soja is a soybean, a soha. Yeah. Not soja.
And it's also something that in North American farming is in abundance.
Chris, I just realized anybody tuning in now has never heard the podcast.
They're going to think we're
mentally ill.
We're weird, right?
Mentally ill.
Mentally ill,
We're talking about
these
soybeans.
words we're using to then tie into the topic of conversation for today, right? So we're going to see how they fit. Right now, they're not fitting too well, Mike.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we throw them in the dumper like Jack the frickin' dumper thrower. Let's just get on to gratitude is our first one.
We're going to see how they fit.
Bro, you've been all over gratitude lately. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, I sent it. Well, just the other week, I sent out I sent out an email to our email list that just had absolutely nothing to do with any content we'd published. It was just a reminder to be grateful. And it was just something that in my life happened. If I remember correctly, I had spent a bunch of time helping my daughter with some math, because she was in this weird situation where it's half school, half online school. But even the half is really only half of what's normal. So it's a quarter of each. And trying, and I do mean trying, to learn fairly advanced mathematical topics in a really weird classroom setup,
tough environment,
with poor notes, poor teaching quality, all kinds of problems. So I helped her out to get up to speed. Thankfully, I have a math background. I'm an engineer.
Yeah, you are.
I have a degree in this stuff.
Yes, you do.
Turns out I've forgotten quite a bit of it, Mike, which is interesting. But what I was grateful for in this moment, which I was writing about, is that I had a chance to just do almost no work for a few days and spend the time that I normally would have been working helping my family out, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't be doing that on a teacher's salary.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing that on an engineer's salary. Wouldn't been doing that if I had a job.
Right,
so
which you do.
I was grateful that I had set up my life in such a way that basically I'm unemployed now. I'm self-employed.
Right.
I was able to take the time away from what normally would have been work, didn't have anyone that I was accountable to that was going to be mad at me for not showing up or anything like that.
Right.
And so it's important to be grateful. Everyone has different things to be grateful.
Here's what you just triggered. That's very interesting. I agree with everything you said. My dad was an engineer too. He was electrical. And my dad was really grateful for his family. Family was everything to him, much more than it has been to me, unfortunately. I didn't inherit that. I'm much more solitary, but he was always home from work at 5:30 every night.
Yeah.
Supper was on the table at 5:30. Sometimes he'd be home by 5. And he always had meals with the family. Even though he was a busy engineer with a lot of responsibility, he built and designed enormous transformers and for a telephone system. But it was important enough. He was grateful for what he had with us, which although he died really young, I remember he always wanted to be with us. And he was grateful to have the family together. Now, I think it's important that if someone matters to us, this is going to sound maudlin, but it's true. We let people know. Don't assume. Like when someone does something for us, I think we need to thank them. We have to actually make the effort to thank them and say, oh, he knows I'm grateful. No, people don't frickin' know unless you say something.
Yep, it comes, if you...
And I'm grateful to myself for saying that.
I'm grateful for you, for bringing that up. It's actually part of the 5 Love Languages book, right? It's words of affirmation, which is related to gratitude in some ways. If you express gratitude with words for something that somebody's done for you, if that is their love language.
Even just to say thanks to anybody, though, right?
Absolutely.
They say you can tell really nasty, narcissistic, and borderline psychopathic people by how they treat wait staff in restaurants.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that on this podcast before.
It is true. Guy who ripped me off for a lot of money a number of years ago was a friend and clearly isn't now. He treated wait staff terribly. Like he would be dismissive to them as though they were his servants.
What do you have against lawyers, Mike?
Lawyers, nothing.
I'm just kidding. That's so random.
Investment bankers is a totally different thing.
That is no. Like I'm just implying.
I know we got it. We got the joke, but we're not witches. Now listen, on that whole gratitude thing, thanking people is important. Remember the Benjamin Franklin discovery, America's great statesman, Freemason, ambassador to France, multilingual scientist. Franklin is the one who discovered, or at least pointed out first, that respect precedes liking. Remember we talked about this last week at Colonel Bastards. Yeah.
Let's talk about this some more. So respect precedes liking. What does that mean? So
is it post pro hoc ergo post propter hoc?
Well, no, I don't think it is. I think there's very likely a cause-effect relationship here, which we'll get to.
Yeah, well, it is. The interesting thing is, if you want people to like you, ensure that they respect you first.
Okay.
Don't let people treat you with disrespect, because when we treat people with disrespect, our emotions follow and we begin to treat them as people who are not worthy of respect because they're bad or stupid or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to let people know when we respect them, to treat people well. And we do that. We find out we like them. That's toxic in a marriage. When one person in the marriage starts being dismissive to the other person, then they will start to dislike them. It follows the action, which is kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of logic to that, because if you think about it, think of someone, anyone listening, think of someone that you really respect. Now, try to find somebody who you really respect that you totally dislike. I think that's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone that I really respect that I dislike.
Or the corollary, I can't think of people that I
like, that I disrespect,
but like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which leads to the other point in this: never flatter people. Even if you're thanking them, flattery is fake.
So explain, how would you let's say, pay a genuine compliment rather than flattery.
Tell you, man, I was walking through a mall a while back. Heather thought this was really nice, but she knows my heart. She knows it comes from the heart. There was an elderly woman walking through the mall, and she'd obviously really looked after herself. I mean, not elderly like me. I mean, quite elderly. And she looked after herself, and she was, well appointed her clothes, and she had this beautiful hat on, and obviously taken time to look after her appearance. And as I passed, I said, I just have to tell you, you look amazing in that hat. And this woman just lit up like a light bulb. Now, if I was a flatterer, oh, your hat looks good. Oh, and your coat is good. It doesn't look the same.
Overboard.
But when it's from the heart, I think we can really affirm people and help them with things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're saying flattery, you
That's
mean
a great sweater,
going
Chris.
overboard, or
flattery is fake.
Something that seems nonsensical,
or it's to get something. Flattery it's fake. Anyway. Let's move on to enthusiasm. This is something that I think it was actually Norman Vincent Peale, who's by no means one of my favorite authors, but he spoke about this years ago, and he said enthusiasm makes the difference. And I see it as an underused game changer when we're dealing with other people. The reason why is enthusiasm, graphologically speaking, is a leadership trait. And it shows up in the T-bars in your writing, the long T-bars, especially if they're slightly upward tilted at the end, brings in optimism and enthusiasm. And when people are enthusiastic, they have the ability to get other people caught up in their plans and ideas. That's why it's a leadership trait.
This is interesting. I actually think that we need to spend a tiny bit more time tying gratitude and enthusiasm together, because I think there's some important connections here. So gratitude, first of all, we talked about other people and respecting you, liking you, all that. But there's also just inner gratitude that I think it's important to realize that even though things can be going kind of crap for guys like Brado and, his hypnosis sign falling over and all that.
Yeah.
But there's things we wake up for in the morning and we can be grateful for, and that'll help our internal state. That helps us align ourselves with moving forward, being happy, doing the right things, and treating people the right way. Because if we're not grateful for anything in our own lives, we're going to be depressed and unhappy. And we're probably going to treat other people crap, and then they won't respect us, they won't like us. And I'm slipping into the Brado voice here.
Well, no, you're just a little. You're Canadian. You're allowed to do that. You got sort of a bit of the Ottawa Valley thing happening, which is very close to Owen Sound.
And I think that if you're grateful, and you're going to have an easier time being enthusiastic about things too.
I think so. My dad used to sing that song. And when you're worried and cannot sleep, just count your blessings instead of sheep.
That's a good one. I like
song,
that.
But it is true.
I've never heard that song.
Count your blessings. Count what's the good stuff you can be grateful for. And you're saying, but you're tying it to enthusiasm.
Yeah. So, it really does feel to me like they're connected, because if you cannot, I shouldn't say it in a negative frame. If you wake up every morning and you ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? What 5 things, 3 things, whatever it is, anything. I'm grateful I woke up. I'm grateful that I'm not dead.
Yeah,
that could be one, right? That's always, I'm grateful I'm still breathing. So it's going to be much easier to be enthusiastic about what else is going on in your life and what you can do and the other people in your life and the goals and the objectives and the things you're moving towards when you start with an attitude of gratitude rather than, everything's crap. Yeah. So now what are you enthusiastic about? Talking about how crap things are.
Well, yeah, and that's a paradox, isn't it? But one can be enthusiastic about crap stuff too. Like when people make a complaint list and get right into it with great enthusiasm. And I think, you
can be positively enthusiastic or negatively. I think it's
probably the main one.
Yeah, you can be negatively enthusiastic, and that's not a good way to be.
No, I got a note to myself here. Throw yourself into tasks with commitment to succeed. Mm-hmm. That's enthusiasm, right? The commitment to succeed, because enthusiasm is endurance of will. And it's a good thing. This is one that drives me nuts, and I put this in the list because I think it's important. In your attitude and dealing with other people, I recommend you speak without word whiskers or affectations.
Okay, talk about that.
A word whisker is when, and we're going there, right? Yeah. And we got through the door, right? And my counter in that, when I counter to right is when the person would do it.
Right.
I yell it back, right. And so we got there, okay.
Why did you do that with the new... Yeah, no.
Oh, I hate that.
That seems to be still amplifying its way through society as people will start like when there's there you go. I just did it. When there's a topic
Chris.
change these days, people will say, yeah, no. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
do you want to show back?
No way out.
Which is it? Is it yes or no?
Light drives me crazy. So I was like sitting there and he was like listening. Was he like listening or was he? It drives me insane. That's a word whisker.
I like it too.
You know how great the great courses are. My favorite courses. One of them, I won't even say which one it is. But one of the teachers, a very good teacher, but he's got a frickin' word whisker. He says, okay, all the time. And by third lesson in, it's shortened just to this guttural. No, it's not. It's sort of a soft N in front of it. Like, yeah, throat noise. I just wanted to drive my thumbs into his eyes and tear his ears off. Anyway, but so that's a word whisker. And affectations are, this can drive me nuts too. I saw a speaker once. I was speaking at the Royal York Hotel in Toronto. I've done that many times. Keynote for a corporation. I was paid a ridiculous amount of money for 1 hour of my time.
$100?
As you know, considerably more than that, as you know. But anyway, as it turned out, the guy ahead of me went on so long. Do you know how long my keynote was reduced to?
15 minutes?
8 minutes.
Oh, you're kidding.
My hour-long, I got paid full rate for 8 minutes of my time because this dick went on in front of me, just couldn't shut up. And they had a really strict timetable. It got so bad. He was pedantic, and pedantism drives me crazy when the person sounds very pedantic. He was literally talking like this, Chris. And off the coast of San Diego, if you look for Russian trawlers, you will not see one Russian trawler. You will not see two Russian trawlers. And he'd go right up to like 7. It's just like, I'm thinking, shut up before one of us dies.
Yeah.
And he had a really annoying thing. He went on so long, the president of the company stood up in the front row and he said, well, I guess I'm done now. I just have to finish. And he went on like another 12 minutes. I couldn't believe it. And here's the thing he did that was so infuriating. You can't see this over the podcast. You're going to have to imagine it. I'm wearing reading glasses. He had glasses on. When he'd make a point, he'd take his right hand up with the thumb and first finger and pinch the glasses where the arm of them met the lens and just hold it there for a second and then put his hand down again. So he'd make a point and grip his glasses and look at everyone. Make a point, grip his glasses. It was the most infuriating thing imaginable.
Wow.
That is an affectation.
You think he got hired back?
No, I didn't either. I think that guy wasn't very good. He didn't say much. He had 8 minutes.
Really hard to wow people.
So don't be pedantic, even if you're right. It's just infuriating. I knew a guy recently. I won't say who it was, but it was someone I know. And him and his girlfriend were having a horrendous fight. They came over. They wanted my wife and I to intervene and talk to them. So they both wanted this. So we began to talk to them. And she was telling him how much she loved him. And he just said, I know. Never once did he tell her back that he loved her. He missed the opportunity. And he went into a pedantic thing about, well, it's like electrons and neutrons in an atom. I said, this is something you've read recently and you're trying to bring it into the conversation. It's nothing to do with your relationship. Pedantism. Leave it out. Take an interest in people. Ask them about themselves.
Enthusiastically be interested in
you're
other
rewinding.
people.
No, you're rewinding to the other point. Ask about themselves.
I'm tying them together.
I said, well done. Yeah. Watch out for eye trouble. Eye trouble is a terrible thing. If you find yourself
not
using
eye
the
as
word
in the ocular, not as in my eye.
No.
You're talking about the letter I, as in me.
It's narcissistic. It's using I all the time. Well, I. It's infuriating. Take an interest in the other person. Remember, people love to hear their own name, Dale Carnegie, and people love it when you ask about them. Ask them what's important to them. Chris, I'll give you an honest example about this, implying I've been lying up to now. Yes, comic genius. Yesterday, coming back from the mall under lockdown, I came out of the mall, mask on. The other guy's got a mask on. I got my Walter White Meth Lab mask on, which is amazing, Breaking Bad mask. And there's a guy a bit older than me, walked out of the mall. He's a fairly big guy, and he was limping very badly. I just went up to him. I said, sir, you've got a very bad limp. What happened? This guy turned around, stopped, started talking to me all about his knee problems and his knee replacement and everything.
Talking about himself.
And I was so glad, though, that someone took the time. And I said, my sister had 2 knee replacements. The first one was painful. Second one was 15 years later. They've improved the technology. I said, you're going to soar through this. It's not even going to be a problem. The suggestion, right? And he said, thank you so much. Merry Christmas, sir. And I said, awesome. The same to you. This guy's day was brightened because I took the time to ask him about his frickin' sore knee.
Yeah, you started by asking him about something to do with him, not talking about yourself.
The next one, Chris, is don't interrupt. Scary, I was interrupting you to do it.
I was looking at that on the notes and I was planning on interrupting you and you beat me to it.
Well, there's 2 aspects of this. One of them is we've all done it. Everyone else more than me. But don't drift away when the other person's speaking. You know, sort of zoning out and not really paying attention just because they're doing a Ken Sweatman story. And the other one, you're zoning out. No, you bastard. The other one is...
I'm relating.
Don't plan what you're going to say next. That's a big one that I've done so much. I'll have a response that is either so hilarious or so devastating. I'm framing what I'm going to say instead of paying attention.
Yeah, this is exactly, when I said I'm relating, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I heard this many years ago, a friend of mine, Kevin, and he was telling a story about how he appeared to be zoning out, I guess, during a conversation, and he was called upon it. And he said, no, I am listening. And the guy says to Kevin, you're not listening, you're planning what you're going to say next.
There you go.
And he stopped and went, he's right, damn it.
He's right, damn him. Damn his eyes.
So engage in the conversation by actually listening, not just being silent.
Yeah.
Right?
Build the rapport, listen to the person, and don't do the one, like, watch out for the tone of a discussion. If it's not a debate, don't turn it into one. Mm-hmm. People sometimes want to be right and they want to, well, what do you think of that? Yeah, and just tear it apart. My wife said her mistake was she tried to turn her friends into her own personal debating club. Yeah. And they didn't want that.
You can be grateful that there are people who want to talk to you, so don't wreck it.
There's that G word again. And here's the one I have been tremendously guilty of, Chris, and I've gotten better at it. Self-referencing in my answers. Now, my justification for this was I only have my own life to reference. Mm-hmm. But what happened was it was driving my wife nuts. And
give me an example.
I'll give you an example. So someone says, oh, and we got up to the cabin and, you know, a tree had fallen on the roof and, you know, you're talking about that we had to get the fire crew in. There was so much damage. And I jump in right away and say, we had
that happened to me.
When I was a kid, and I've now changed the topic from what they're talking about to something it reminds me of in my own life.
There was another phrase for that exact action. I can't remember what
I did. Was it me?
It's a book that I read not too long ago that was exactly described as, it escapes me what the darn thing was called, but it was exactly that. It's the idea of turning any story somebody gives you into something about you.
Was it Wide Open Windows?
No.
You know why I said that? Wide Open Windows was a grade 4 reader.
Oh, I think it was the book. I'm pretty sure it was the book How to Have Impossible Conversations.
Oh yeah, that was a good book.
It was I listened to the audiobook.
Yeah.
And
I found it impossible.
I'll have to look it up and find out what the darn things that he called it.
Yeah,
but self-referencing, I like that. That's fine.
You're forgetting stuff all the time, Chris.
I got stuck in traffic on my way to work this morning. Yeah, you know, I got stuck in some really bad traffic. And now all of a sudden it's about you. Okay.
So how about positivity? I think it's important that we put a positive spin on events, but don't be Pollyanna. Do you know what I mean by Pollyanna?
Like making everything, it doesn't matter. There was a nuclear bomb that dropped on our village, but it's okay. Well, the half-life is only 25,000 years.
Yeah. Well, that's why it should be a neutron bomb. It's going to leave the infrastructure intact. But Pollyanna, it was a Disney movie, and it was Haley Mills, who I was in love with when I was 11 years old. And Pollyanna played the glad game. She'd always look for something to be glad about, to be grateful about. But you can drive people nuts with that if they're grieving or if they've got real pain in their lives. Oh, well, you'll be okay. I know your dad just died, but I tell you, next year you won't even care. And you'll be on with your life and you'll have a brand new dad.
So you wouldn't want to use the language pattern. So what could be great about this?
Yeah. You get to be a pallbearer. That's a new experience. You've never done that before. You know, maybe you can get his heart donated to someone else. Wouldn't that be nice? Like, shut up. I'm telling myself to shut up. So put a positive spin, but don't go overboard with this. And I think this is really important. Doubt your negative conclusions about other people.
That's interesting.
It's a really important thing to recognize. We doubt other people so much. Why not cast that doubt on our own conclusions? Because sometimes things can be just ignorance. They don't have to be malicious. Mm-hmm. Someone can just be making a mistake or not know any better. It doesn't mean they're being malicious towards you. Say, doubt your negative conclusions about other people.
Yeah, we talk about the difference between ignorance and undermining. Just so somebody... First of all, it could be you, the receiver of the message, that is ignorant. You could be wrong.
Right.
But if they are wrong, it could be that they simply don't know, not that they are trying to undermine you or destroy your life or anything like that.
I'm sorry, you made me laugh because the word ignorant, you're using it completely the correct way.
Yeah.
From the Greek gnosko to know. Now, that's interesting. When I was a little kid in public school, they thought ignorant meant being crude. So that's what we all thought it meant. So somebody would do some crude joke and a girl in the class would say, is that ever ignorant?
Oh, man.
So when you said it, it suddenly took me back to class. So I've just done a self-reference here.
You have.
Yeah, I've done it again. Now listen, when you hear gossip about someone, here's a really important one. I recommend don't repeat it unless it is somehow edifying to someone. If you're sure it's true, you got to be sure it's true. But the third one is it necessary to repeat it?
Oh, yeah.
Is it necessary?
Yeah.
You know, I think of things in my own life I've repeated. There was just no damn reason to put them on the table.
You and I are both in the past guilty of having
Especially you.
passed on rumors about people. And the thing
I
is,
know.
all it takes is one time for you to experience it where it comes back to you and you realize that was just
Totally unfair.
horribly wrong,
Totally
horribly
unfair.
unnecessary.
I know the
unfair.
example you're talking about.
Yeah.
We passed a rumor on without verifying it. We
Absolutely
believed it was
wrong.
true, and we really hurt someone's feelings. And we both repented
And
of
I
that.
remember over coffee, and I told you exactly what happened. I said, I just made a discovery here that I did a horrible thing.
Do you still feel bad about it in a way?
No, I'm good now. I've completely
On a scale
recovered.
of 8 to 10, how likely are you to kill yourself?
Massively apologized, right? And felt very good about it. And it taught me a huge life lesson.
Yeah, well, maybe it should teach you, get off my case, you know? All the times this is a guy who freaked on me yesterday for using the wrong Zoom link. And he's the one who sent it to me, the bastard. Okay, listen, we got a special report, Chris, and we're going to have to see there's something has occurred, and I think we need to get to it right now. This is a special report, Chris, just in from David Ferry in Miami Beach.
Chris and Mike, I just returned from Dallas-Fort Worth, where I was promoting the new line of COVID-19 masks to the local government officials and hospitals. It was my first time in DFW, so I decided to take an hour or so out of my busy day and go and see the site of the Kennedy assassination at Dealey Plaza. Since I was wearing my mask, I took an Uber and was dropped near the statue in the plaza. My driver said, "There he is! That's old man Dealey." And indeed it was. I left the car and walked over to the grassy knoll in order to imagine the events of that day in November 1963. It was surreal to say the least, and as I stood there on the hill, I could easily imagine the motorcade coming around the bend on that fateful day. I looked around me, getting my bearings, and being ex-military, considered the lines of fire that would have been directed at the open limousine where Jack and Jackie sat with the Connollys. I looked up to the Texas School Book Depository, and to my amazement, there was a man in the window who at first looked like Lee Harvey Oswald. I was wearing a pair of Nikon Monarch binoculars around my neck, and I swung them up to see who was in the window, as he was clearly staring at me. And if he was going to open fire, I wanted to know about it. As I focused on the window, I saw something astounding. It was Gus Grissom, who waved when I saw him and immediately backed away from the window into the darkness of the room. I realized he was making a break for it, which is sad because I'm a huge Virgil Grissom fan and would have liked to get his autograph and buy him a coffee. David Ferry went on to say that Grissom looked youthful and extremely fit, but a little tired around the eyes.
Unbelievable, Chris. He's still out there. Now, another thing I think is interesting here, Chris, I've got a feeling we're going to probably extend this into another one.
Oh, we might.
But, you know yourself. Here's one it's kind of an interesting one. Tell new stories. This comes from Chinese medicine.
I think you've told this one before.
I know, but I think it should be. Oh, you bastard. Oh, such comedic genius. Not. Tell new stories. In Chinese medicine, they talk about when a new year begins, what new stories are you going to tell instead of the old, sad old stories?
Oh, especially
you know
if they're sad and just garbage in your life, clear it out.
This is interesting because I've never attended the Landmark Forum, but I know one of the things they talk about, and I know I've got friends like Keith in Minneapolis who got a great benefit from it. I'm not taking a shot at them, but he said, you know, we talk about running your racket, and your racket is your story, your whole story. Oh, well, you know, I come from a family of abuse. And if they say, stop running your racket, you're seeing everything through that lens. And I'm looking at this now in Chinese medicine terms and saying, tell new stories. Let go of the old stories because life moves on. So why not move on with it? Make your stories into powerful, life-changing metaphors instead of whining and complaining about what happened to you.
Yeah, the positive stories are always useful for your library of metaphors and stuff like that, but the negative stuff,
That's right.
Trash out.
Unless there's a life lesson in it that people can benefit from.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Landmark as well. Never had any exposure to it myself.
No, neither
plenty
have I.
of friends who have.
Now, I recommend, and you'll get this one, Chris, keep your agreements and appointments.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm sometimes very bad at that. Again, being self-employed as we
this is
are.
an intervention.
I don't put things in my calendar all that well. And I've learned, first of all, learn to do that because I won't keep my appointment if I don't remember about it. But also when I screw up, I apologize to people.
I'm not accepting this. You are so freaking organized with all the stuff you do. You are so pathologically on time for things, and you have a billion irons in the fire and somehow still manage to keep it going. So I think you're stellar at this. You might not you are.
I could be better, and I've learned to use my calendar to make, when I'm making appointments with other people that are not just self-imposed appointments, like I'm going to go to the gym all by myself at 9 o'clock this morning, or repeated things like I'm going to drive my daughter to school. That's normal. But when I set up a meeting with someone and I don't put it in my calendar, guess what? I'll forget.
Yeah. Electronic calendars, it has rescued my life, Chris, because I'm not a naturally organized person. Fortunately, God be eternally praised, I'm married to a woman who is pathologically organized. Go out and buy little gray boxes to put the little gray boxes in. The first thing on the list is get more paper for more lists, but she's great at it. She runs my life, makes it run like a finely tuned machine. And, I said when I was in England on my last tour, got bad flu and a broken nose, and I had horrible pain and a fever, and I had an itch inside my ear driving me nuts. And I opened my case of, toiletry bag, men's bag of stuff. And my wife would put 3 Q-tips in there with a rubber band around them. I could get inside my ear and have a damn good gouge.
I bet you were grateful in that moment.
I was grateful. I thought, I hope there's some aspirins in here. And there was a tube of 222s, which are Canadian aspirin with codeine over the counter. And I was just, thank you, God, for a wife who's organized. But the electronic calendar has made it possible now for me to keep my appointments and not just, I'll remember. I forgot all the time. Yeah. All the time.
And I like that you wrote here, if you have to cancel something, make it up to the person.
If you have cancer.
If you have to cancel,
we'll edit that out.
Make it up to the person. But also, if you screw up, like I was just alluding to,
don't point.
Apologize legitimately. Don't make up a crap excuse.
Right.
Just say what happened.
Take responsibility right away.
It.
You'll note that's in the Brain Software notebook, which is free.
Yes.
It's, when you screw up, immediately take responsibility. The more you put it off, the worse it's going to get. Go to the person, take full responsibility. They'll get on your case, agree with them, and keep taking responsibility and saying, where do we go from here? How can we fix this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the best way. Be dependable. And if you have to cancel something, make it up to the person. Do something.
We just said that.
But do something tangible for them that they'll not just say, it was your fault, but actually do something for them.
Yeah, a good example would be if you agreed to meet somewhere and you had to cancel, the next time when you reschedule, meet at their location or much closer to where they are, for example.
You're speaking from experience. Right. Clearly a man who's done this many times. Now listen, honor your first commitment. This is one thing my dad taught me. He taught me some great rules of life. As far as washroom goes, go when you can, not when you have to. And keep the communication lines open, no matter how bad an argument gets. Don't stop communicating verbally. And the third one is honor your first commitment. If you say you're going to do something and something better comes along, stick with your first commitment anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about this one, buddy? And I think we're going to close with this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Life isn't only about you. Although we joke, we say it's about you. But it's not only about you.
That's right. Okay, let's talk about it.
So I think it's important to find ways to make a difference in other people's lives, to help people along. There's a really neat kid in our church. His name is Henry. And I've known him since he was such a little kid that he carried a teddy bear to church with him. And now he's like 13, 14, and he's becoming a big kid. He's really super bright. And whenever we'd see him after church in the fellowship hall, I'd teach him card tricks and stuff. And he always called me Dr. Doom. Now he just calls me Doom now. He's Captain Awesome and I'm Doom. But I want to encourage this kid and, help him find the wonder in life and the joy in life that I had when I was a kid.
Yeah. Did
you have anybody in your life who was like, when you're a boy, other than your parents, other than your dad, anyone who was just sort of, you loved seeing this person?
This is one of those things where completely unconscious. So you've just said something and it has triggered, for whatever reason, a memory from my youth that I never would have imagined would come up. Here's what's come up.
So it's worthwhile.
When I was about maybe 7 years old,
so 15,
I was living in an area of Montreal, and a suburb of Montreal, and we had this wonderful, it was a neighborhood called Dollard des Ormeaux. So some listeners will know where that is. It's in Quebec. And we had an outdoor pool, an Olympic-sized outdoor pool called West Park Pool.
Okay.
And I lived down the street from it. So that was where we had it was a private membership. Like your whole family could get a membership for the year for like $200 or something. It was incredibly cheap. And we lived very close. So I loved swimming. That's how I discovered a love of the water and became a lifeguard and all that stuff in my youth. Well, in the summer, we'd have swim team. So I was essentially like being a competitive swimmer, but not all year long. It was summer competitive. It wasn't really all that competitive, but I was good at it. I loved it. And I was about 7 years old, and I was a much better swimmer than most people my age, simply because I loved it and I did it a lot. Okay. So I had this one swim coach, and I don't even remember his name, but he always just called me Ace. Hey, Ace. And he would pat me on the head and say Ace and whatever. And it just made me feel important because I was a skinny little tiny kid.
So was I,
But I could swim, man.
Yeah, you're an amazing swimmer.
I could swim. And this guy, he just elevated me the way he addressed me, and it made me feel good.
That's freaking great, buddy.
And I'm sure you calibrate because you know.
Totally. Look, your state is changing as you're saying this.
So that was just something that was, he made me feel important.
Yeah, so he found a way to make a difference in your life. And we have to reference, because we're talking about personal things here, Donald Thane, my grade 6 teacher, who made life wonderful for me, made me love learning. And the one that's stands out for me is we're saying life isn't only about you, so find ways to make a difference in other people's life, like he did with you. So be available to other people at least some of the time. Don't put it off, right?
That's right.
You won't have the time later on. And find somebody you can mentor. Find somebody you can help. Right now, I have a meeting tomorrow. I'm meeting with this kid on the phone or online every couple of weeks. And he's a friend of Ryan, a family friend. He's a teenage kid. He's really fascinated by hypnosis, a really nice kid, and he wants to learn it. And the kid's got no money to take our course or anything. He's 17, but he's smart, really smart. And so I'm mentoring him from a distance and just pointing him in the right direction, telling him what to lead or what to read and what to look at.
And how else can people connect with you, Mike, to get personal free mentorship about hypnosis?
Write to Chris at MikeMandelHypnosis.com.
I'm just offering up all your time.
No, listen, you're a bastard. I say, what are you great at that can be a legacy? Now, buddy, I've seen you actually do this. Steve Watts and I, our buddy from the deputy sheriff, we're not great swimmers. I couldn't take swimming lessons because I was allergic to chlorine. He never had a chance. And you were giving us swimming lessons at the pool in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I remember that.
We took some key distinctions that were game changers for me.
Yeah.
And that's great. You like to help people.
I love teaching. I love breaking things down into their simplistic components. Yeah. You're doing it again. There was something that came up that I wanted to mention. Oh, right. I was just going to say, when you talk about getting things done now, I'll give you a simple example. When a lot of little things are going on in one's life, it's easy to know that you have to do something and just put it off, right? Well, last week, my business coach that I used for many years, a good friend of mine, Rich, he texted me and said, hey, will you be a guest on my new podcast? I said, yes, of course. So he sent me the link and said, okay, book yourself in on my calendar. And of course, I saw that message and just thought, I'll do it later. And then I realized, no, because if I say that to myself, I will get busy with other small things and I will forget. And then I will not be honoring my commitment to Rich.
Nice.
So instead, I just went, all right, I'll just book it now. And it's today. I'm going to be on his podcast today. So, today in our real lives on November the 24th.
1 month to Christmas Eve, buddy. Well, that's great. And we're going to complete this in the next podcast. There's so much stuff. How about, Chris, you can go to the empowering questions for today.
All right. So here is the empowering question for episode 166 of the Brain Software Podcast. We want you to consider asking yourself the following question. What is the one area of your life that is in greatest need of an overhaul? And what changes are you committed to make in that area starting today? So what things can you change right away that will yield immense benefits to you and someone else?
Excellent, buddy. That's really good stuff. And I want to end off with a Meta 5, and it's Colonel Halt and the Rendlesham UFO book.
Ooh.
Our dear friend Carl Smith, who we've had some of the funniest and best times of our lives hanging out with in Las Vegas and in England when he brought us to Suffolk to do some training. Carl took us to Rendlesham Forest, which was Britain's UFO sighting, the most famous one in British history, the most well-authenticated UFO sighting in history anywhere in the world, actually. And Colonel Halt, Charles Halt, was the deputy commander of the base when this happened. This happened over Christmas around 1980, I believe. The case has always fascinated me. We went to Rendlesham, got my picture taken there, went into Woodbridge Air Force Base, and amazing stuff. And Carl is such a freaking cool guy that he had Colonel Halt in Suffolk at Rendlesham doing lectures, and he gave me a couple of things as a gift. At his own expense, he got me a signed deposition of Colonel Halt that Colonel Halt had done on his UFO sighting that night as the base deputy commander, signed personally to me, and it's framed. And it's just, this is freaking gold to a collector like me. An amazing case, fascinating. But he got me a couple of UFO books too. And one of them was Halt's own book. I can't imagine what this must have cost. It was really thick, really well done. Tons of research in UFOs around the Suffolk area. Phenomenal stories, photographs, amazing stuff. But we have a mutual friend, Paul, and he's more of a UFO buff than I am. And he and I have seen them together, unexplained balls of light in the sky. He's just so excited about this stuff. And after I read the Rendlesham UFO book, which was a prize, I gave it to Paul. And he was so blown away. He said, Mike, okay, I'll just take it on a loan, and whenever you want it back, you can have it back. And I put it in his hands. I said, no, Paul. I said, you're a good friend. I know what this means to you, and I want you to have it. And I felt so freaking good because I had the joy that he had over this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's basically the thing. And it's, Carl might be mad at me for passing it on, but the blessing he gave me is still blessing other people. And the joy of it is I kept the deposition, signed deposition, because that was the best.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been episode 166 of Brain Software with Mike Mandel, and I'm Chris Thompson. And we encourage you to head on over to MikeMandelHypnosis.com. Remember, one L in Mandel, MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You can sign up for a free trial of the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, which is pretty awesome. There's, of course, lots of other free stuff on the website. We've got all kinds of stuff for you. But our flagship online hypnosis training and certification program, free trial, MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You will love it. It'll change your life. Thanks again, and good night.
Once I built a railroad, made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower to the sun, built of bricks and mortar and lime. Once I built a tower, Chris, now it's done. Chris, personalizing the song. Brother, can you spare a couple of $1,000? Al Jolson.